Welcome to the show. I'm Dom Dumais, and I'm in Bangkok. I'm also the official podcaster of the SHL. 2016, a year in review, episode 45. It's been an interesting year in many ways. We've lost many amazing people this year, some famous, some not, but all loved by somebody. We've lost a bear of a man, police officers, brothers, sisters, ex-gamers, astronauts, singers, wrestlers, musicians, writers, comedians, trainers, a fighter, a butterfly, actors, actresses, athletes, a psychic, a droid, a first lady, a Candyman, a stepmother, a leader, a father, a mother, a sex symbol, a wizard, a spaceman, a prince, a princess, and a king. All heartfelt losses by many people all around the world. I've also been very busy in my podcasting. In my podcast from last year, which you can find at domdumas.com/13, I talked about the things that I wanted to accomplish this year. First, I wanted to pass my Showdown test because I failed it the first time. And in February, I did test again and I passed solidly, and I'm really proud of that. I also talked about going running and trying to improve my stamina. And I went hardly running at all. I think I went running maybe 2 or 3 times. And I've been so-so when it comes to staying fit and healthy. I have taken a break from karate because I wanted to focus on my podcast, especially with working with the SHL, which I'll get more into later. But that's okay. I mean, I need to focus 100% on the things that I do. But I absolutely do eat less junk. I didn't play my guitar as much as I wanted, and I didn't get a bass. I did get better at Japanese, and I could have a basic conversation in Japanese. I didn't record every week this year, but I did record 31 episodes, which for me I felt was pretty amazing, especially considering that I've had some family and some friends visiting from the States. I now have 3 mics. I also have a travel mic, and I have, as you can see behind me, a green screen, which I plan on getting more and more use out of. I also have had many guests this year, and I plan on having more and more. Now, about my podcasts. In episode 14, I talked about my love of music. I also talked about some of my favorite bands, like Kiss, which was episode 18, and Motley Crue, which was episode 29. I also interviewed a friend of mine named Sophia about her music and performing in Bangkok, which was episode 32. In episode 15, I talked about riding motorcycles and what it means to me and how it felt, and at some of the trips that we did while we were living in northern Thailand. I had a few episodes on professional wrestling, and episode 16 was strictly about me and my time in the NWF. In episode 20, I talked about professional wrestling terminology. I had a few episodes where I talked about martial arts. In episode 19, I talked about me studying martial arts, and in episode 26, I talked about the first official MMA show in Bangkok, put on by One Championship. In episode 21, I was interviewed by somebody else for the first time, which was Karsten. And later on, in episode 33, I was interviewed again, this time by Sophia. In episode 17, I started videoing my podcasts for you. This was the episode in which Tracy videoed me skating on a little piece of ice at Central World here in Bangkok. This also led me to do an episode on hockey and the NHL, which was episode 23, and also about the Bangkok Ice Hockey League, which was episode 31. And then, in episode 35, I talked about how I was approached by a new startup hockey league here in Bangkok called the CM Hockey League, and how they wanted me to be their official podcaster. This came to fruition in episode 40 when I podcasted the SHL's 2016 draft and inaugural meeting. And then in episode 41, I had DJ Sherman of Sports Corner Titanium on. And in episode 43, I had Christian Olofsson of The Aware and also the secretary of the SHL. on the show. I also started adding an SHL news section at the end of every podcast where I talked about what was going on in the SHL, and I talked about the Rolling Stone Player of the Game. In episode 22, I talked about my life through computers, basically about the first computer I ever used, and every computer I used from that point on until the ones I use now. In episode 24, I had Niall back on the show, and we talked about diet and fitness. At this time, I had a little bit of a break because my sister was visiting from the States, and we then took her to Khao Yai. I also did an episode about Khao Yai, which was episode 25. In episode 27, I talked about the yoga class I had with one of my favorite teachers, which was Sarissa, and how great it was to practice yoga again. I also started playing with my cameras more and more, so I did an episode about my journey through photography, which was episode 28. This year, I also watched the new Point Break movie, and I decided to do an episode comparing Point Break 1991 and Point Break 2015, and which one I felt was better and why. Near the start of the 2016 NFL season, there were some things going on that I just didn't agree with, and the way the news can make me angry. And that was Angry News, episode 34. And I talked about why these things made me angry. Not about how this particular player made me angry, although I didn't agree with what he did, but I disagreed with how the news handled it. And then I had a great guest on for episode 36, which was Brian Boyd, the creator of Grammarman. And we talked about Grammarman and superheroes, and the superheroes that he loves. In episode 37, I decided to talk about the things that I felt I loved early in my life, but later in life, I found out that they just weren't so good. This episode was titled, That Aged Well, Not. And that was episode 37. And then I decided to do a little bit of a controversial episode in which I talked about the Pledge of Allegiance, and that was episode 38, and how I felt that students shouldn't be forced to say it in class, and why I feel that way. And surprisingly, I didn't get as much hate mail from it as I thought I would. But that's a good thing. Maybe people are being open-minded now, or being more open-minded than I thought they would be. I took another break around this time because a friend of ours, Eric, who was visiting from the States, and we went to Khao Yai, and we also went whale watching. And I did a podcast called Amazing Adventures, which was episode 39, where I talked about how great a time it was, both the trip to Khao Yai and also the whale watching. Things I'd never thought I'd do while I was in Bangkok, but I'm so glad I got to do them, and I'm looking forward to doing them again. And then, in episode 42, I finally got Tracy on the show, and it was awesome. We had so much fun. We talked about and tried different Thai snacks. Some were good, some were not so good. And lastly, I had Tracy on the podcast again, where we talked about Christmas. We had a discussion about it and kind of what was Christmas like for us when we were growing up, what Christmas was like in the States, what Christmas was like in England, some of our fond Christmas memories, what it was like for Christmas for us the first time away from our family, what was our first Christmas like being in a tropical country, things like that. And I'm absolutely looking forward to having Tracy on the podcast again, and I'm going to love that. So far, it's been a great year for me when it comes to podcasts. I do plan on podcasting more and more, and I plan on having more and more guests on my show. And I plan on talking to some people that I know from the States and about their music and about wrestling and whatever we decide to talk about at the time. I do have a friend that I have lined up. We haven't actually set a date where we're going to talk about his music and some of the things that he's been doing and how long he's been making music. I also plan on talking to a few of my wrestling buddies. It's just a matter of getting us organized. And I'm really excited about that. I also am still trying to convince Sean, the founder and the president, I guess you could call him, of the NWF to come on the show. Should be an interesting conversation. When I was talking to Tracy about this podcast, I kind of told her that I'm not going to do any New Year's resolutions, or at least I'm not going to do any New Year's resolutions on the show. And I decided to change my mind because I guess by putting it out there, it kind of forces me to at least be more aware of what my resolutions are and maybe take better steps in trying to follow through with them. I have found ways to do Skype podcasts so I can have a guest on Skype and also through FaceTime. So I plan on doing those two things. As you can see behind me, I have a green screen. Right now it's just a matter of getting my lights. And once I do that, I'll be able to have a different thing and use the green screen more effectively on my show. And I'm really looking forward to that. And hopefully it will enhance my show. For those of you that are watching my show on YouTube or on my website, if you're listening to the show, the green screen isn't going to make much of a difference to you. But that's okay. I mean, you listen to it or you watch it however you want. And I just love the fact that there are people out there listening to it, and I greatly appreciate it. I am planning on playing my guitars. I'm not going to say I want to buy a bass. I definitely don't want to buy let me rephrase that. I do want to buy a bass, but I don't look at buying one this year. I want to get better at playing guitar first, and then maybe buy a bass. But there's more things I want to get for my podcast. For example, lights. I also want a travel light, as I'm doing not more podcasts, but I'm doing more video segments down at the rink, at the ice rink at Central Ramen 9, when it comes to talking to SHL players and doing the Rolling Stone player of the game and things like that. If I have a better light, while I'm there, the videos will get that much better. At least that's my plan. I definitely, as I said, I have taken a break from karate because I felt if I was doing karate and I was podcasting at the same time, I was struggling. I couldn't give either one 100% of my focus, and I didn't feel that was right for karate, and I also didn't feel that was right for the SHL. So I decided to make a personal choice, and I decided to for the time being, make a focus on the SHL. So to go with that, although I'm not doing karate now, I do want to kind of get back in shape. I have gained a little bit more weight than I've wanted to gain. To get back to my optimal weight, or not my optimal weight, what I feel comfortable doing, I need to lose a few pounds, and I plan on doing some exercises. I do plan on start jogging again. Hopefully I'll be able to do it more this year, and I'm going to try and keep a record of everything that I do. And hopefully I will be able to tell you next year at this time that, hey, I'm actually healthier, and I am doing what I said I was going to do, more so than I have done now. I plan on having more of the SHL hockey players on the show, which I'm really excited about. I have one coming on possibly in my next episode, who happens to be the president of the SHL and also another player of the Sports Corner Titanium, which will be fun. And there's also a guy that I would love to have on the show who is kind of like the godfather of hockey in Thailand, and it should be fun. He's got so many stories that I just would love to pick his brain about while he's been in Thailand and things like that. So it should be a lot of fun. I hope to get him on the show. I always want to have Tracy on the show. That is always a blast. Just talking with her and so you guys can see how her and I interact with each other. It's always kind of fun. For me, I love doing things with her. And I know she enjoys it when she's doing it. It's just sometimes a little bit difficult to get her on the show because she is a bit shy. But she also does have her own vlog channel. And I'll try to get her to promote that next time that she's on. But that's pretty much it for me for the 2016 year in review. But I want you to always remember that you should focus on the now. You shouldn't stress about what passed, and you shouldn't worry about what's coming up in the future. All right, thanks a lot. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Please rate my show or leave a comment or make suggestions of what you would like me to talk about. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Dom Dumas, on Twitter at Dom Dumas, or on Instagram, Dom_Dumas. Thanks a lot.